Have you ever noticed this? You can work out, eat clean, stay positive, and still feel heavy. Not tired. Heavy. Like your mind is wearing a backpack you never agreed to carry. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't need a new habit. They need a clean cut. In this video, I'm going to share 6 things you can cut out to feel calmer and more in control without changing your whole life overnight. And near the end, I'll tell you the one cut that almost nobody talks about. Because it doesn't look dramatic, but it changes everything. Let's get into it. Slow, real, and practical. If you're watching this, I'm guessing life is loud right now. Not loud like a concert, loud like you wake up and your phone is already pulling your attention. Work follows you home, even if nobody says it out loud. You're trying to be present with your family, but your brain is still in yesterday's argument or tomorrow's deadline. And somehow, even on good days, you don't feel peace. You feel like you're bracing. Here's why Stoicism keeps coming back, especially now. Not because it's trendy, but because it's one of the few frameworks that doesn't ask you to control the world. It asks you to control what you can and let go of what you can't. And the older I get, the more I realize peace isn't something you find, it's something you build. So today, we're going through 6 cuts, not 6 rules to be perfect. 6 things that quietly drain your life until you don't recognize yourself. We'll go in a way that's easy to follow. For each one, 1, what it is, the real problem. 2, what it looks like in everyday life, the pain. 3, a practical cut you can make, the solution. And yes, this is for real life. Coworkers, family dynamics, social media, anxiety, regret, the whole thing. Let's start with the first cut, because it's the one most people refuse to make. Cut 1, the opinions of people who don't walk your path. You have to cut the habit of living for the approval of people who don't carry your responsibilities. Let me paint a scene you might recognize. You're in the parking lot after a long day. Your body is tired, but your mind is still racing. You open your phone just to check something, and there it is. A comment, a tone, a look. Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's someone at work, maybe it's not even direct, just passive, subtle, enough to get under your skin. You tell yourself, I shouldn't care, but you do. And the worst part? It's not just that you care, it's that you start editing yourself. You speak a little softer, you shrink your plans a little. You delay the thing you wanted to do. You hold back the honest conversation. You avoid posting, avoid applying, avoid starting because you don't want the reaction. That's the real cost of other people's opinions. It quietly turns you into someone you can tolerate, but not someone you respect. Stoics had a clean way to say it. If you let strangers steer your peace, you're handing them your life. There's a line often attributed to Epictetus that hits hard. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish or stupid, because growth almost always looks strange to people who aren't growing. Here's the cut. Stop taking criticism from people you wouldn't trade lives with. And I mean that literally. Try this for the next 7 days. When you feel judged, ask yourself, would I switch lives with this person? Their schedule, their habits, their character, their relationships, their peace? If the answer is no, then why are you letting their opinion weigh more than your own? Second, make it practical. Mute the noise. Mute or unfollow accounts that trigger comparison. Stop reading comments when you're already tired. Don't ask 10 people for feedback when you only need one trusted voice. This isn't being cold, it's being selective with your mind. Because if your mind is your home, you can't let everybody walk in with muddy shoes. Cut 2, the illusion that you have endless time. Cut the belief that you can always start later. This one hurts because it's so normal in modern life. You don't say, I'm wasting my life. You say, I'm just busy. You say, after this quarter, after the holidays, after the kids get older, after I'm less stressed. And months pass, then years pass. One day you realize you've been waiting for a version of life that doesn't exist, a version where you have time and energy and clarity all at once. Seneca said something that should be printed on every calendar. It's not that we have a short time to live, it's that we waste a lot of it. And I've seen this in real life. Maybe you have too. A friend says they'll get healthier, but keeps starting Monday. Someone says they'll call their dad, but keeps pushing it. Someone wants to leave a job that's killing them, but keeps waiting for the perfect moment. Then something happens, a health scare, a layoff, a breakup, a funeral, and suddenly, time isn't a concept, it's a bill that came due. Here's the cut. Stop treating time like a refillable resource. Do this simple exercise tonight. Write down 3 things. 1 conversation you've been avoiding. 2, 1 decision you've been delaying. 3, 1 goal you keep planning, but not doing. Now pick one and create a deadline that hurts a little. 24 hours. Not because you can solve everything in a day, but because action breaks the spell of someday. And here's a phrase I want you to keep. Someday is expensive. It costs you peace. It costs you momentum. It costs you your own trust. Start paying with action instead of regret. Cut 3. Relationships that require you to shrink. Cut relationships that only work when you're smaller, quieter, and easier to control. This one is complicated because I'm not talking about cut everyone off. I'm talking about the relationships that slowly drain you because they punish your growth. You felt it when you level up. You start taking better care of yourself, and someone calls you selfish. You set a boundary, and suddenly you're difficult. You stop drinking as much, and people act like you betrayed the group. You start reading, learning, building something, and you get hit with jokes that aren't really jokes. And it's subtle. They don't say, "I need you to stay small." They say, "You've changed." As if change is a crime. Sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's family, sometimes it's a partner who loved you, but only when you were easy to manage. And here's the hardest part. You start negotiating your own future just to keep the peace. You hide your ambition, you stop talking about your goals. You shrink your identity so someone else can feel comfortable. Stoicism doesn't ask you to be cruel, it asks you to be honest. Marcus Aurelius wrote about not being pulled by the crowd, not living for other people's approval, not because he hated people, but because he understood how easily your life becomes someone else's script. Here's the cut. Stop paying for connection with self-betrayal. Try this question. After I spend time with them, do I feel expanded or contracted? Do I feel more like myself or less? If someone consistently makes you feel smaller, you don't need a dramatic exit. You need a slow boundary. Practical steps. Reduce exposure, less time, fewer deep conversations. Stop over-explaining your growth. Share your wins with people who can celebrate them. If it's close family, keep respect, but protect your inner space. And if you're in a relationship where you constantly feel like you have to earn basic respect, that's not love. That's negotiation. You're allowed to grow. You're allowed to outgrow rooms. You're allowed to choose peace over familiar chaos.
Cut 4. The need to control what you can't control. Cut the addiction to control, especially over things that were never yours to manage. This one shows up in everyday life like this. You replay a conversation in your head 20 times. You think of better lines, better timing, better comebacks. You imagine what you should have said, what they meant, what they're thinking. Or you do this at work. You try to control outcomes. You try to control how people perceive you. You try to control the team, the timeline, the client, the economy, the algorithm. And you call it being responsible. But deep down, it's fear. Because if you can control everything, you never have to feel uncertain. You never have to feel rejected. You never have to feel helpless. Except, you can't control everything. So you just stay tense. Epictetus said something that sounds simple, but it's like a knife. Some things are up to us, some things are not. Most anxiety is what happens when you spend your energy on the second category. And let's be real, modern life is designed to trigger this. News cycles, social media, politics, school systems, healthcare. There's always something to worry about. You can live your whole life reacting to things you can't change and call it being informed. Meanwhile, your real life is passing by. Here's the cut. Stop confusing concern with control. Do this exercise when you're spiraling. Take a piece of paper and draw 2 columns. Control. No control. Now dump the thoughts out of your head onto paper. If it's in no control, you do only 2 things. 1. Accept it. Exist. 2. Decide how you will respond. That's it. Then pick 1 controllable action, not 10. 1. If you're anxious about health, schedule the appointment. If you're anxious about money, look at the numbers for 20 minutes. If you're anxious about relationships, send the honest message. If you're anxious about the world, limit your news intake and protect your mind. Stoicism is not don't care. It's care where your power actually is. Because the moment you stop trying to control the weather, you finally have energy to build shelter. Cut 5. The story you keep telling yourself about who you are. Cut the identity story that keeps you stuck. This one is quiet, but it's brutal. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they keep repeating a story. I'm not disciplined. I'm just an anxious person. I always mess things up. I'm not the kind of person who can do that. I'm too old to start. My family is just like this. This is how I've always been. That story becomes a prison you decorate. And the worst part? Sometimes the story started as protection. Maybe you got embarrassed when you were younger, so you decided, I won't try. Maybe you got judged, so you decided, I'll stay quiet. Maybe you failed once, so you decided, I'm not built for success. At first, it feels safe, but later, it becomes the reason you feel trapped. Seneca wrote about how we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And identity stories are imagination with a badge on it. They feel true because you've said them for years. But a thought repeated isn't truth. It's rehearsal. Here's the cut. Stop treating your current pattern as your permanent personality. Do this. Catch 1 identity sentence you say about yourself. Example, I'm not disciplined. Now rewrite it like a grown adult who has lived life. I haven't practiced discipline in a way that works for me yet. I'm disciplined in some areas, and I can train it in others. I can start small and build proof, then take a micro action to prove the new story. Not a huge goal, a small proof. If you want discipline, do 10 minutes, every day, no negotiation. If you want confidence, do the 1 uncomfortable task you've been avoiding. If you want peace, create 1 boundary and keep it. Stoicism teaches this. You can't control the first thought, but you can control the second one, and you can definitely control the action. New identity isn't built by affirmations. It's built by receipts. Cut 6. The belief that peace is something you find. Cut the belief that peace is on the other side of a perfect future. This might be the most common trap in modern life. We tell ourselves, I'll relax when work calms down. I'll feel better when I move. I'll be confident when I lose the weight. I'll be happy when I hit that number. I'll finally breathe when people stop stressing me out. And I get it, because life can be heavy. But here's the truth. If you can't access peace now, you won't magically access it later, because you don't arrive into a perfect life. You arrive into another version of life. New job, new problems, new city, new loneliness, new relationship, new triggers, more money, new anxiety. Peace isn't a location, it's a skill. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the mind being a fortress, not because life is soft, but because life is chaotic. And if you think peace is something the world gives you, you'll always be waiting. And waiting becomes bitterness. You start thinking, what's wrong with me? You start thinking other people have it figured out. You start thinking you missed your chance. But you didn't miss your chance. You just never trained the skill. Here's the cut. Treat peace like a practice, not a prize. And practice looks boring. That's why it works. 3 practical moves. 1. Daily mental declutter, 5 minutes. Before you touch your phone, sit and ask, what matters today? What can I control today? What am I willing to let go of today? 2. Stop feeding the mind junk food. If you consume outrage, comparison, and fear all day, your mind will feel like chaos. Limit the inputs, protect your attention. 3. Build a return to calm ritual. When you feel triggered, breathe slower than you want to. Relax your jaw and shoulders. Name what you feel without judgment. Choose one action that aligns with your values. That's it. Not dramatic, but powerful. Because peace isn't the absence of problems. It's the presence of inner order. Remember what I said at the start? One cut almost nobody talks about because it doesn't look dramatic. Here it is. Cut the habit of abandoning yourself. That's the real theme behind all 6 cuts. When you chase approval, you abandon yourself. When you delay your life, you abandon yourself. When you shrink for relationships, you abandon yourself. When you try to control everything, you abandon yourself. When you repeat a limiting identity story, you abandon yourself. When you wait to find peace, you abandon yourself. And I'm not saying this to shame you. I'm saying it because I've done it. I've smiled when I was angry. I've stayed quiet when I needed to speak. I've overworked to earn love. I've scrolled to numb anxiety. I've waited for later, like later was guaranteed. Most people don't need motivation. They need permission to stop leaving themselves behind. So if you take nothing else from this video, take this. You don't have to fix your whole life. You just have to stop carrying what's crushing you. Let's recap the 6 cuts. 1. Cut the opinions of people who don't walk your path. 2. Cut the illusion that you have endless time. 3. Cut relationships that require you to shrink. 4. Cut the need to control what you can't control. 5. Cut the story you keep telling yourself about who you are. 6. Cut the belief that peace is something you find. And here's the practical takeaway. Pick one, cut today. Not all 6. 1. Then make one small move that proves you're serious. Because your life won't change from understanding. It changes from action. If this hit you in a real way, if it felt like someone finally put words to what you've been carrying, hit like so the algorithm shows it to someone else who needs it. And if you want more videos like this, Stoic ideas, but explained like real life, not a philosophy lecture, subscribe. We keep it practical here. Question for you. Which one do you need to cut first? Approval, delay, a draining relationship, control, your self-story, or the peace later trap? Drop it in the comments, even one sentence. Sometimes naming it is the first real step. All right, take care of your mind today. You only get one.